Yes. Well, I am so excited for this book as well because it's been a long time coming. But you know what? With all good things, it's worth the wait. It's comprehensive, it's evergreen. Everything that you wanted to know as a new learner to AI. This is for non technical. It's a non technical guide for brilliant minds. And I believe we're brilliant minds, right? All we need is a evergreen base layer book, and this is it. This is your starting point, and it covers everything. 22 chapters of goodness. If you're a lean in learner, if you're curious, and you're the type of person that wants to really understand how these systems work before you start dumping your data in it, or before you say, oh, I'm going to let my kids use it to do homework, then you really are comprehensive. And it literally is what I like to call the missing manual. It's 22 chapters. And how I got here is after 22 years in technology, started out as a broadcast journalist, built some of the first websites and HTML for news stations, and at that time people weren't even watching news. There was no YouTube, and so my career goes way back. And then mp3.com, of course, which was the huge disruption. I have a chapter in the book where I talk about the parallels between disruption of content. It's a page from the same playbook. Like, we've been here before, people. And the only difference is that the scale and the opportunities are greater and bigger. And of course, there's nuances there, right? It's not exactly the same. But the net is, in order to look forward, you got to look backward. And it's that pattern recognition. From mp3.com, did a Linux startup, had a nice debate lawsuit with Microsoft, deposed, really got to understand the sensitivities of big tech on privacy. Then 10 years at Qualcomm, and then 4 years at Sony in an executive level. So, all of that stuff is not me bragging. It's me saying I got beat up a lot. I've learned a lot of lessons about what it takes to survive in tech. And I've also launched hundreds of products. And in the last decade, certainly in the last 6, 7 years, many AI products. So I know what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not an engineer, but in this case, you don't need to be an engineer, because AI is democratizing this for all of us, just like you would no longer probably, or shouldn't probably, send your kids to coding camp. My initial motivation was, as I looked what was in the marketplace, I started to get really angry because I saw ChatGPT Millionaire and I saw all this garbage dropping in, and I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. And as I would look at it, I would see that this person had no background, they had no contacts, and it was to turn a buck. And it reminded me of everything that's happened in the app economy, from bad apps when we had smartphones. It reminded me of all the terrible websites. It reminded me of crypto scams and COVID scams. And I'm like, I'm not going to endure another scam fest, right? I have knowledge, and I also have the time to be able to dive in deep with my journalistic skills and my great network to really ask the hard questions. So I think you also asked what's different, right? Yeah. Okay. So let me tell you what's different. There's a lot that's different. What's different is I literally think there are no courses that are as comprehensive as what this book is now. And I've taken a mini MBA in AI. I'm certified with Google as a digital leader. Of course, I have a great tech background. So, I'm not a teacher, but I feel like this is the missing manual. This is the textbook. You can't get 22 chapters without really looking at everything from how we got here. So I go all the way back to 1300s to say every single technology that ever happened, how did that layer onto each other? Because we have this sense that somehow we got here quickly and that this is magic. And that's ridiculous. This is not magic. It's statistics when you look at certainly the large language models. And I break it down how it works. And I use examples. And I use 3 different examples. And even in this chapter called Machine Learning and Vectors, you're probably looking at that going, gosh, do I really want to know what this is? I'm like, you really do. Because the way I explain it is I explain it just like how the library has the Dewey Decimal System. Well, how do you find books? You have some kind of code or system. And so I break it down, and I have graphics, and I have a few dad jokes in there and some fun stuff. Artificial intelligence in its origins was really trying to mimic human cognition on the brain. right? That's his neural networks. That's what was trying to happen. And I said, well, gosh, if we really looked at it like that, then we are a platform, right? And whatever we put in, how we're raised, how, what we believe is our operating system. It could be Linux, it could be Microsoft, or it could be some horrible parents that gave you some garbage. So I talk about your mindset. Most people are freaked out. And they're freaked out because there's a lack of information. And, I really tried very hard to uncover all of that information. So, what I'd say is that it's very broad, 22 chapters. It's not very deep, except with explaining how these systems work, but you certainly can have an intelligent conversation about what AI is, what the risk is, why you have to be informed. And for 19 bucks, I think it's a steal. And I will say this too, it won't be 19 bucks forever. This is my intro price. I also have, if you go to my website, you'll see I have the layoff trackers, I have job trackers. The website, every day something else is being added. The book is full of graphics. I just got a great review. I'm so blessed to get this review of someone who said she read it by the pool all day long, front to cover, and laughed and loved the graphics. And so it's not reading a text manual. It's reading also too my story. Like, why me? What are those patterns? And then in the back of the book, I really talk about, again, that framework as a human, what are those things we need to do to be able to thrive? And I believe AI is a tool that will allow you to thrive. I also believe it's an economic game changer. I think you can be born in the poorest part of United States or really anywhere. And I think as long as you have access and knowledge, you can build your way to your destiny. I absolutely believe that. But you're not going to be able to do that unless you really seek to understand how we got here and how it works. Let's not rely on big tech to just keep pushing and feeding us all of these AI platforms. Understand, and this is the root in the title, how to win friends and influence robots. They're all bots. They're all bots, right? And they fundamentally operate the same. So if you take that core knowledge, you internalize it, you get your head right, and buy my book. Hey, I think you're going to have a great fall. In the book, I call myself a tech culturist, right? Because I'm not an engineer, but I am someone who's been charged with crafting the culture around a product, right? And so when you're looking at the culture of what we're in now, post-COVID, right? We're basically, we've survived for this and with some good habits and some bad habits and certainly accelerated innovation. So actually, COVID actually put us in a position to, from a technology standpoint, in that 2 years, we had the equivalent of 10 years technology advancement. So it supercharged us to be ready. So by the time AI came out as a consumer application, knowing that AI in that COVID time also accelerated dramatically, it makes sense that it would be going now full speed because a lot of this stuff was behind the scenes. Some of this stuff I was seeing. I mean, obviously, I was working on it. The IBO robotics platform, which is an artificial intelligence bot, and so it makes sense that it would go fast, but it's going faster even than I thought. And this is why this took so long to write the book. I would be ready to go, and then something major would happen. I can't publish it. I have to put this in here. And then finally, I said, you know what? This book has to be evergreen. And so it is evergreen. And even if times change, and every day, listen, since I hit the submit print button to have this dog out, there's been 4 more, I think, significant announcements. And this is why I just plead with your viewers here to sign up to my newsletter. It's not free. I mean, it's not doesn't cost anything. It's free. It's not spammy either. I don't send out a bunch of emails. I send out stuff that I'm like, whoa, this just happened. And if you bought the book on page 23, just note that this is where we're going. And so that speed means that you need not just a book, but you need a relationship. And what I'm really trying to do, Felina, is create a relationship with entrepreneurs and home managers and those folks that are left behind. If you're not in a company right now that is investing dollars to do workforce training on AI, you are being left behind. There's no way you're going to catch up by just watching the news. What you're going to do is you're going to have an anxiety attack watching the news, right? Because you don't have the framework to make sense of this. Kind of a strange thing to say, but I'll say it anyway. I feel like is my mission. Like I feel like this was something that I'm supposed to do because literally cannot think about anything else. Kind of makes me pretty predictable at cocktail parties, I'll tell you that. But I love it. I love it. And I want to have a relationship with folks that want to be in lockstep. And we do that by just let's stay engaged on Facebook, LinkedIn, but most certainly on the newsletter because there will be more content coming out. We've never seen any technology disperse this fast ever before, and the stakes have never been higher before. So if someone is saying that they're comfortable, I would really challenge that because even the experts, industry analysts aren't comfortable. If you look around at all the university coursework, you're just now starting to see executive education classes, MIT and Cornell and all of it, just now launching these classes. And as I've said, I've taken a lot of these courses. They really don't have the answer. They're no further ahead than many others who are really trying to understand this. So net is we're all in this together. I'm here as a resource to you. Workforces are really challenged right now because it's just like Facebook. When Facebook launched, and I was at Qualcomm at that time. By the way, I authored Qualcomm's first social media policy. I also authored Sony's first social media policy, which is kind of hard to believe because that was in 2017. Net is when Facebook came out, what companies did is said, we'll fire you if you're on Facebook. And that is absolutely the wrong thing to do. What you should do is you structure a policy that says, hey, I get it. There's lots of cool tools out there that's going to make, some of these projects move a lot faster, but we can't have you put proprietary information out there for a lot of reasons. So embrace it, acknowledge this is happening, and your employees will respect you because you'll say, we don't have all the answers, but we do have a trainer that's going to give you a guide. And so what happens is I give all of the workforce employees the book. I go through sessions. We go through basics on how to prompt. We go through how to draft a policy if you're a company leader. And then taking it a step further, what if you want to get really, really serious about your AI strategy and to start looking at where are you collecting data? If you haven't been, many have been, but if you've not, then looking at systems to basically say, where can we optimize this and where can you insert an AI strategy? I also too, I'll make this announcement here. I'll be launching the workbook in fall. This is basically more of, I'm not going to, as opposed to reading this manual, it would be let's go through in the workbook step by step. So I use the workbook currently in my trainings as well. So yeah, this is a call to anyone who's running a business is if you don't use me, use someone. Please equip your employees because they are equipping themselves. And if you don't give them guidance and they got to get that deadline done, and they're going into these systems with your proprietary information and it's not necessary. You can really help them. It's the companies that have really good revenues, right? They have a lot to risk. So we know that talent is the number one cost for any organization, right? And so, they want to pour into their talent. So it's typically companies that come to me are doing really well financially. So they're not in this fear mindset where they're like, oh my God, scarcity mentality. Like we got to hold on to our information and we can't let this happen. And so the companies, my experience has been open because they want to equip and they want to retain and they want to grow their employees. And I would say it's like if your employer is not being proactive about getting training, this is why you have the book, right? This is where you're going to get the vernacular. And so open in the sense of healthy companies. That is not the typical though, right? So I get lots of conversations with companies that have interest in doing this, but they're not interested in really talking about where they are and what their headcount strategy is, because what they're really looking at is how do I lay off people? And as someone who's been a crisis communications expert for a number of years, I'm doing consulting on, we're going to lay off a significant portion of the workforce. How do we do this in such a way? But then how do we train the rest? And I think it's a real misstep. I think that this is a transition time. I have lots of information in the book that talks about that, what that transition time is going to look like, how long that transition time will last. What companies should be doing is they should be training and upskilling and then finding their next new market. Don't just lay off and dismiss them and deploy tools, because I'll tell you, these tools are still really buggy. They're still trying to figure it out. And every time an algorithm changes, and this is universal, right? This is the nature of these systems. So if you think you're going to be, Mr. Slick, and you're going to like, oh, we just, got this licensing agreement with insert AI company here, and we're going to lay off 1/3 of the workforce, that's not the right way to go, right? But that's a lot of what's in many people's heads right now. And it will be painful, right? No one ever said this was going to be pain-free. But you know what? When has growth ever been pain-free? Have you ever grown a limb and it not hurt? No, it all hurts, right? So this is good. Embrace the pain, embrace the suck, as they say in the Marine Corps and the military and our military town. Embrace the suck. Okay. AI is to implement is hard, but you know what? It is also fun. It is also delightful. And I think it's going to get a lot of people to their next level.
Absolutely. Cheryl, what would you say to folks that just lost their job last week because potentially, even though obviously the company that laid them off isn't saying it's because of AI, but they feel like they are being replaced? What can they do? Obviously, read your book is number one, is what they should do. So, because this is not going away, it's accelerating every week, every month, every year, it's going to accelerate. So, to the point you're making, we need to educate ourselves. We need to understand this. And your book is brilliant at helping us understand it. But what would you say to that person of what's next? What should they do?
Yeah, well, definitely, and it's heartbreaking to hear of the layoffs. I certainly am aware of some pretty significant and surprising layoffs and moves. Companies moving from California, but universally across the United States, companies are laying people off, and I do believe this is because of AI. I absolutely believe it. If you're a writer, if you're in marketing, attorneys, I mean, these tools are so good. Yeah, they're buggy, but listen, when it's that good. So my recommendation is, if you were in a job, I have to believe you have tremendous value. You were solving a problem. Now, just because a machine process came along or something came along that allowed them to move you out and bring them in, doesn't mean you've lost your value. All that means is that you are now being put in a place where you're going to have to use those same tools to elevate yourself. And I'm telling you, you can do it. Listen, I've been a corporate person for a long time. Yes, in startup culture, mp3.com, and multiple little pit stops in startups. And I'm telling you, this is the mind shift. And I think this is where they're really going to learn from you, Felina, is that if you can do it for someone else, you more than certainly can do it for yourself. But you got to get your head right, right? Got to get your head right, and you got to really believe in yourself. You have to look at yourself again like a computer and your operating system. What are you telling yourself, right? And relative to actual specific tools, I have a chapter on job searching and resumes. So if you want to get back in, hey, maybe you need that healthcare, maybe it's just part of your DNA, maybe you know thyself, you want to be back in a corporate. I talk about the tools that are being used with AI for job shoppers, right? So this is an important tool too. Techniques on, of course, we talk about prompting, but techniques on, okay, well, some companies don't want you to use AI to submit your content. It's an automatic penalty. Well, how do you basically cleanse your content so it's not using this? And so all kinds of practical tips. So net is, I really think everything happens for a reason. And we are an economy that's doing, I think is doing really well because of AI. please don't shut yourself out of this market. You belong. This is why I wrote the book. Understand how it works. You can solve the problems that are out there. There are more problems than there are people. Pick a problem and go solve it. Felina will help you on the other stuff. I'll be your AI champion. And together, we're going to go out there and kick ass, take names, and rule the world. Not the robots. It's us. We're going to rule the world. So. That's
Yes,
my
exactly.
nuggets.
But we gotta stay ahead of the robots.
Yes, you got to stay ahead of the robots, and those little suckers are moving quite fast.
Yeah.
They're quite brisk in their
Yes.
gait, but net is all I have to think about is anytime you want to go, I don't know, watch Netflix or connect to Bluetooth or any electronics. How many times do those things fail? Or you're like, why isn't this working? Or even jumping on this and like, why isn't this working? So my faith is that robots are going to take over the world unless we can fix all of those other little annoying problems. We have to remember that these are models, okay? And just because we have these great models doesn't mean that Pinocchio becomes a real boy. Sorry, okay? It is what it is. This is difficult stuff. Took us a long time to get here. That's why I go through the history and all of the innovations that had to ladder on top of each other just to get here. Didn't happen overnight. It's not magic. You belong. You have a voice. And there's one concept that I think maybe is quite common now, but it's powerful, is that when we think about game-changing innovations such as the atomic bomb, whether good or bad, right? Game-changing innovations, no one really says that you have to understand everything about how that works, but we all agree you're going to be impacted by it. So think of it like that. This book will tell you what that impact's going to look like, but it'll also tell you how it works should you want to dig deeper. I'd also say get yourself certified, be a lifelong learner. So, I never stop learning. I'm super curious. I just picked up a Google certification. I will be doing the same thing for Amazon. I will do for every company that has an AI. Start getting certifications. They're not expensive, right? And they're actually fun. And they can be fun because you can see the power behind these systems. So become an expert on at least one of the platforms and then bill yourself as that, because net is a lot of the large companies are leading the dialogue on this. And so get yourself to be an expert in one of those large company platforms because you can't go wrong doing that. People that believe in God and that are spiritual. Some people think this is the Antichrist. They think that this is the end times. They think this is Armageddon. And I have a chapter in the end of my book. And I put it in the end of the book and I said, listen, you don't have to read this if you don't want to read this, but I'm going to tell you something about what I believe spiritually and what, if you believe in 81% of Americans believe in God or some higher power, if you believe in some higher power greater than yourself, let me tell you what biblical text says about things like this. And it doesn't say that this is Armageddon. So you're making that up.
Yeah.
And
For some people, it maybe feels that way, but yeah.
yeah, it feels that way. But it's like, okay, let's go back to the mindset chapter. And then let's go back to, if you really think that this is the end times, if you really want to get into that, read what the Bible says. So I quote Bible verses that say we have dominion over all things in this world. That's what our higher power gave us. And, we don't, I'll be very clear about, I'm not like ascribing one religion over the other, is a universally we're in charge. So please don't don't self-select and say, well, the world's ending anyway, I'm going to go live in a cave. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you know what? That's what people have done every time technology has launched. And then 10 years later, they came out with a beard and gray hair and they're like, oh, I guess I was wrong. But so, so don't do that. Don't hide. It's not Armageddon. And, even if it were, what are you going to do about it? Why don't you focus on getting your Google certification instead? And then we'll worry about that when that is in your face. But as for now, we need to just focus on really what we can do. And it's the core of the serenity prayer, is just to focus on what you can do, not what you can't, and have the wisdom to know the difference. And all of these lessons, I think, in my book harken back to previous lessons that I think we kind of forgot. And I just put them right in between the AI tips, tools, and vocational approaches and the history, which is why I believe it's the missing manual. It's, toes to nose AI book. So another thing that I talk about is accessibility, and accessibility in two senses of the word. Do you have access to the technology and the tools? Do you have, hardware, phone? Do you have the tools? Do you have money to do this? So this is really important. And that's from a corporate social responsibility. Great for companies that want to figure out how to equip people. The other thing that I talk about that I think is really important too is that we think about the big problems that AI can solve. We hear this a lot, solving for cancer and solving for climate change. And, in the beginning of my book, I talk about my sister who died of cancer really quite young, before she was 40, and how, 20 years later, that I believe that there could have been an intervention on her extension of her life. I know, in fact, it could be. So, I just challenge us to think about the power behind that. And here's the key: we have that same power. And so, I try and connect the power of these large language models to the incredible power of, these systems that are solving and teasing out the DNA. We have a measure of that same power. So think of it as inheriting the power to solve big problems. And you are included. These are consumer tools. It's just get comfortable so you can participate in that way, in a big way. Okay, so when we think about hands-on jobs, home building, things of this nature, construction is a big one, because we think, oh, how could ChatGPT come and build this, right? I have this great graphic. Hey, come build this, ChatGPT. Well, it's not really ChatGPT that's going to do it, but there are 3D drones that are actually layering bricks, right? There is all manner of AI that's disrupting construction. So please don't think just because you're in a manual hands-on job that your job's not going to change because of this. It is. It may take a little bit longer to do this, but this impacts everyone. General purpose technologies impact the general population. So keep that in mind, and you don't have to be scared, but you do have to be informed. And if not for you, for your kid, for your high schooler, for the college graduate that's just leaving, because a lot of folks are walking out, throwing their caps up and basically saying, now what? Because that internship where I was a copy editor is gone, right? And that internship is in the law firm is gone. And that's the reality. So let's embrace reality, and let's embrace our core assets of, we're intelligent. If you got your degree and you've lost your job, you have core goodness that can be leveraged. So we just got to leverage it. Executive coach at Sony, and he would always say, okay, well, Joe, I want to tell you about this thing called the Karpman drama triangle. And it's really this idea that we tend to blame people. We like to shift responsibility. Then we're never actually really responsible. Once you start to take responsibility for yourself as an individual, like no one's coming to save you, then you're going to really start to embrace these tools. And so this is in the mindset of don't blame the hammer, right? We would never blame a hammer for if you hit someone in the head and they died. You wouldn't blame the hammer. You'd blame the person behind the hammer. You'd also not thank the hammer after you hung a picture. Like, thank you for helping me hang the picture. You wouldn't do that, right? Because it's not the hammer's fault. But yet we do this to AI. Well, AI did it. The AI is going to get us. It's not the AI, it's the humans behind the AI. And it reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. Pull back the curtain. There's a guy back there, and there's many guys back there. And this is the issue, right? There's more guys than there are gals. And this is why some of these systems are so buggy relative to how women show up in these systems. I talk extensively about that. But the net is, don't blame the hammer. Don't blame the system. We live in a great economy with lots of access and lots of resources. And if you're not being served by the people around you to be able to grab onto AI, find new people. What I do in this, because what I didn't want this book to be is I didn't want it to be so time bound by doing tool reviews. However, I did pull out some core tools, especially in the area of photography. So I have images, step-by-step instructions for how you create great prompts, and tools that are really not top of our mind. I mean, this is the thing. Even there are people in my life that are so, I think, technology fluent, and I say, oh, well, you're using this tool here. And they're like, no, I've never heard of it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to hear of this. So I'm finding myself saying this every day. So I'm very excited about that chapter because that chapter is very rich, and it's rich in research. It's rich in that I've subscribed to all of these things for the last year. I've trialed them. I've done screenshots. I say, this works, this doesn't work. Do this, don't do that. And then I also do rankings and listings. But again, the vibe is really more holistic, but you will get those tips, and you will get those tactics, and you will get those tools, and you will get those screenshots to be able to go through there. So, I think it's going to be a fun read. I certainly had fun writing it. I wish it didn't take so long, but I am just I'm thrilled with the outcome, and I just really hope you are too.
It is a fun read. It's brilliant. I mean, in your subtitle is the word brilliant. Like
Brilliant.
it is a
Yeah.
brilliant book, Cheryl. And I want to encourage folks, you have an amazing newsletter, findgood.tech. It's free. I really want to encourage folks to sign up for that because you give so much value. If you want to stay up on AI, that is absolutely the newsletter you need to subscribe to.
I do keynotes, workshops, one-on-ones for folks that really want to do a bespoke custom plan. All of this can happen just by simply emailing me. And again, sign up for the newsletter. And the net is I can help you based off this book. Anything that you want to cover in AI, whether it's building your own large language model and working with developers, I can help you from the very entry to the advanced. So I'm looking forward to hearing what your needs are and how we can get you AI fluent to participate in the new economy and look good doing it.
Cheryl, I view you as a translator, right? We have this very, what seems new technology to some folks, although it's been around for a long time, and you cover that in your book, right? This has been evolving for a long time, but you are that translator between
Mhm.
what needs to happen in the real world, in companies, in business, and what's happening in technology. And your background in journalism
Yeah.
and communication and working for technology companies and launching hundreds of products, like just is so perfectly poised to put this information out. So if folks want to bring you into their company to really
Mhm.
equip their workforce, I know you do that, but you also do lots of speaking
Yeah.
engagements. So if an organization wanted to engage you to do a keynote, to a panel, to moderating a panel, you are a phenomenal moderator. You are funny, you are engaging, like you light up every room you walk into, Cheryl. So if folks want to engage with you, I know you've got some of that information on your site, on a speaker
Yeah.
page. What are the types of topics that most recently, I know you've been doing lots of talks as this book comes out. What are some of the topics that you're really excited to bring to organizations, companies, et cetera?
Yeah, I think the theme is pretty consistent in that they're just looking for a starting point. Most companies are, now the pressure is on every single platform from the Meta glasses to Facebook to LinkedIn. Everything now has the sparkly, beautiful AI icon, and it's pervasive. And so now, they're looking at from a budget perspective. If you're a company, you're saying, oh my goodness, I have to figure out line items for 1,500 employees for some kind of AI solution. So I position myself and have operated as an external AI evangelist, like the AI expert that comes in and does this analysis. And the things that most people want help with is building that policy, and then also really communicating with their employees. We're not going to lay you off. Or if we do a reduction in force, here's why that would happen. And here's the problems that we're looking to solve. And all of this happens with really good communication. So it is, and thank you for saying that, Felina, it is a combination of, I do feel like I am a translator, or as Snoop Dogg would say, the shizzolator. If it's, difficult or complex, pop it in the shizzolator and I'll tell you, here's the net. Here's what they're trying to say. Here's what you need to do. And I try and break it down. And I've gotten really great reviews for really democratizing this information in a way that can get people excited or at least recalibrated. And I think that recalibration is what's really happening, is how are we going to manage and uplift those that are going to be impacted by the AI evolution, because it is happening. And so that those are the areas that are most important. But policy is a big one, workforce training, and then, building those private large language models. If you build your own private large language model, you are not putting your data anywhere. And that's what's really cool. And this is what I'm really excited about, learning Google's Vertex platform. And again, I'm going to be certified on all the other platforms as well. But net is, there's a treasure trove of information. Not everyone's going to have the same exact needs, but by and large, it really has to do with people and policy.
Everybody needs to read this book. I typically don't say that about books, but truly, truly, I mean, this is such an important chapter, our next chapter in the world, that really understanding where we've come from, how we've gotten here, and where we are going, and really embracing these tools from kindergarten to 110 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
truly. And folks in education, I know you talk about that a bit too. How do we change these systems so you don't graduate college with this fancy, $200,000 degree and have nowhere to go with it, right? We all need to understand this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I suspect people will, once they get their mind right, they'll enjoy it. And I certainly have. We're creating and building. We were born to build and create. And this is just another tool in your toolbox. So happy AIing, I would say to all.